All right, breaking over on Dog Post, well, and everywhere really. The AP is sticking with the Dogs at number one. This is not a surprise at all. Both the coaches poll and the AP poll have shifted to where Georgia is the overwhelming number one team in the country. And there's a couple of reasons why. Stick with me on this one. I've got a lot to say about where we're kind of at right now. So I've talked about this a lot. We stick with the AP poll. You got to kind of pick one until the college football playoff comes around. Now the college football playoffs around, and we'll see that new ranking on Tuesday. We'll talk about that Tuesday night, Wednesday. But Georgia with 62 of the 63 first place votes. The other first place vote going to Ohio State, the number two team in the country. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, whatever. If someone thinks they're the best team in the country, then you should vote them number one. It would be hard after this past weekend to really justify that vote, but maybe they just are taking a look at the season, which I think is something that you can do as an AP voter. I'm not sure I would have Ohio State number two necessarily. I think I probably would, but Michigan looks pretty good. I mean, it was not unbelievable against Rutgers. Obviously, nobody had the weekend that Georgia did. So your top five were the Dogs at one, Ohio State two, Michigan at three, TCU at four, the Horned Frogs, and then Tennessee at five. The Ducks at six. LSU has gone all the way up to number seven, y'all. Eight USC, nine UCLA, Alabama falls to 10. Ole Miss kind of they stayed in the same spot if I'm not mistaken at 11, and then everything after that, these teams are relatively to very flawed. You got Clemson at 12, Utah at 13, Penn State at 14, Carolina at 15, the Green Wave at 16, NC State at 17, Texas, and then Liberty, Notre Dame at 20. Illinois at 21, bad loss yesterday for Illinois. And then UCF, the 2017 national champions. And then Kansas State at 23, UW at 24, and Florida State at 25. And the bottom, I'll just talk very briefly. The coaches poll is exactly the same, except in that case, Michigan's got two first place votes. So the coaches see it slightly differently at the first place level, but an overwhelming nod to Georgia, which is understandable. You look, they're 9-0. They've only, I mean, of the eight wins have been by 14 points or more. Only two of them have been by 17 points or fewer. The Missouri game was obviously one of them, and I don't think that's a good Missouri team, but they're not Northwestern. So we're at the moment here where you know Georgia is probably going to go to Atlanta for the SEC championship game specifically to be, that game is going to be for seeding only. I think it's really important to win that game for a lot of different reasons. You can't get there until you beat Mississippi State on Saturday, which Georgia should do, I would say comfortably. Look, I've talked about this a lot. Our event with Kelee Ringo is in a couple of Sundays. It's on the 20th. It will start at 5:30, okay? If you're from out of town, you do not have to be there to get the benefit of it, but you need to act now. We had a lot of signups over the weekend. I don't know how many we got left because I haven't had a chance to count. The link is down below. Sign up now, okay? Secondly, in addition, if you live in Atlanta, guess what? Jeff Foxworthy and I will be signing books at the Perimeter Mall, Barnes and Noble. We're going to be doing it this coming Sunday at 2, I believe the time is. This is an awesome opportunity for if you've not gotten the book, Jeff and I will personalize it for you. He has been outstanding in terms of help here. So Jeff Foxworthy and I will be at the Perimeter Mall, Barnes and Noble this coming Sunday at I believe it starts at 2 o'clock. So pay attention, and we'll get you what you need on that. I'll get you the details a little bit better. That's a little bit my fault, not knowing exactly. I think it's at 2 o'clock. So the Barnes and Noble at Perimeter Mall. So I mean Atlanta, hey, there's 6 million of y'all, so we will probably see you there. Um, again, now just real quick though, this is going to. I don't know. I thought it was going to run out. It's after this weekend. It's going to run out. So get your ticket. It's in Athens, and that will start at we will start at 5:30, 5:45, something like that. We want everybody at 5:30. But anyway, they're the best team. Uh, I think there are teams that can beat them. I do think Tennessee can beat Georgia. They weren't going to beat them yesterday. Ohio State, Michigan. I'd be pretty surprised, but someone other than those. I mean, TCU. I'm skeptical of that. And then, obviously, I do think LSU can beat Georgia. It's going to be hard to beat Georgia in Atlanta. Okay, so that's going to be a tough one because that will be a Georgia home game. That's the other part about where the Dogs are right this second. They are positioned to play home games in the SEC championship game, the college football playoff semifinal. They can play back-to-back home games if they win them both. They play back-to-back home games and it won't be this. I'm going to describe it this way: to walk into the national championship game. I mean, you don't want to make fun of the ACC and all this stuff. There's no better position to be in than where Georgia's in, and I mean, I don't know that it's fair. It just is though. Now, Alabama would be in the same position, Auburn to some degree, anybody that's right around Atlanta. Obviously, Clemson does not play the ACC championship in Atlanta, but they would have had they gotten to the playoff, they would have been clamoring to get to Atlanta. And now we're sitting around. Georgia's probably going to be in the playoff. Ohio State and Michigan, the one of those, if not both, could get to the playoff. I think Tennessee could get to the playoff too. And so, the only team that's kind of hovering around right now that's in the top five is Texas Christian, and I don't know that they'd want to play in Atlanta. So, uh, at this stage, unless someone is playing Georgia, they're probably gonna pick Atlanta as their home. Okay, so that would be Ohio State, Michigan, um, uh, obviously Tennessee, obviously Georgia. And then you start getting into, I mean, I don't buy that LSU would be getting into the playoff. The Rebels, but SC can, Oregon still can, and UCLA can. All the Pac-12 schools would not pick Atlanta. I think we know that. But this is the appropriate ranking. I think the College Football Playoff Committee looks bad. Obviously, those of us who had criticisms of them immediately, I expressed those criticisms. They've got to do a better job of explaining what they're doing. This week, obviously, they're going to have Georgia at the one. Georgia has looked the best. They have the best wins. But now you got to figure out where you're positioning Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee right now, they're not going to they're not going to lose to Missouri. Could they lose to? No, they're not going to lose to Missouri. They're not going to lose to Vanderbilt. They got to go to South Carolina. I don't buy it, but let's just enter that and let's just say they win that game. So they're 11-1, and they're 11-1. Let's see how far they fall. Excuse me. Was their loss worse than Oregon's? No, but they won't be able to win the conference championship. And as we've seen in the past, look, I would take Tennessee over Oregon. I think Oregon. Let me figure that out a little bit. I mean, Tennessee has the better wins. Tennessee, as it stands right now, has 2 wins over AP top 10 teams. Still, LSU and Alabama. Georgia has 2, Tennessee and Oregon. But it's Tuesday night could not be more critical for the Vols. This discussion of Alabama getting into the playoff, that's not happening. I mean, that's over. Clemson. So a lot of good stuff happened for Tennessee. But I know how this goes. And they didn't play so well that they're certainly in. I mean, they got beat pretty good. And we tried to warn people that, playing on the road is tough. But I don't think they should be left out, and I don't think they will. But they really need TCU to lose, which I think is probably going to happen, possibly against Texas. I don't know who is favored in that game, but my suspicion is Texas. And that will open the door for Tennessee. Now it won't. It won't. It will just open the door. It won't get them in. I mean, they. I think they need Georgia to win the SEC. I think that matters a little bit. That takes out the discussion of LSU, a team that Tennessee's already beaten. Maybe they don't. The more I think about it, because look, the East is better than the West. I didn't think you kind of ever say that, but clearly it is. Yeah, Texas is almost a touchdown favorite over TCU. So it's still shaping up that Tennessee will wind up as the three in the playoff, the two or the three, and that would be curious. That would be curious because that to if something weird happens and Georgia is the two, and you're playing Tennessee and Phoenix, that'd be odd. That would be a strange game there. I mean, you're flying, you know, 4 hours or 3 hours to play someone that you could play in Atlanta. But that's not how the playoff works. But the Dogs are number one according to the AP poll and the coaches poll this week. Unanimous number, not unanimous, but the consensus number one in back-to-back weeks.